What's going on, guys? My name is Tom and welcome back to the YouTube Basics series. This is the third and final video in this series and it's about making thumbnails. Now, thumbnails are, well, they are one of the most important, if not the most important thing when it comes to YouTube overall. It's what people see before they click on the video along with the title. So title and thumbnail together are the two aspects that will get people to click on your video. And there are two pieces of software that I would recommend you try and use for thumbnails. Now, the first one is actually free. It's called Canva. I didn't realize this existed until my brother told me. He commented it down on my last video, and that's what he uses. And you can just go and download it, follow the steps, sign in, and all of that fancy stuff. I have never used this before, but I've had a little quick look around, and it seems to be very, very simple. So the first thing you can do is you can go and literally search for YouTube thumbnail, and you're met with this screen. Now, I do want to also say that there is a paid version of this, but you have the option of free. Now, basically all that means is that some aspects of each template could be paid. You can, on the left-hand side, there are a lot of options to switch through, and you can change it to free, but it still shows you paid ones for whatever reason. So you can see this one is paid, but this one doesn't have that symbol, so I'm assuming anyway that it's free. Now, on the left-hand side, you can go through a lot of different styles. You can select fun, and it will show you all the fun ones. And you can click on playful, cute, apparently, happy. You've got so many options to sift through. I would probably actually recommend, it depends on your type of video. If you are doing vlogs or even videos like this, you could probably get away with fun. The thumbnails that get the most clicks tend to be ones that are big and they pop. Like this one that says just says 100K, that's probably gonna get more clicks because of the fact that it's just one massive 100K. This one here, in my opinion, has got too much text. Same with this one on the left, that's too small. You can hardly read the text, you can hardly see the pictures. All people are gonna see at first glance is the pink, so it's not gonna get as many clicks. So what you need is just to have one, make it big. A lot of people watch on their phones. There has been a YouTube update, so it's not the same now, but the thumbnails on the phones obviously come across a lot smaller than on a laptop or a computer or a TV. And so you need to make it pop. So say, for example, let's pick one. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's pick the 100K one. Again, it depends on what videos you're making. If you're doing money marketing one, there's a money marketing category, and you can do, there's a lot to play around with. It's kind of up to you. So here on the left-hand side, you have a number of different elements, and in uploads, you can do a background remover if you've taken pictures on black background or on a green background, a white background, but again, that's paid. Luckily, I've got Photoshop, so I've been able to remove the background myself. But for this thumbnail, for example, I've already uploaded this photo of me here, and I might want to drag that on. You can resize it by using these ones, and then this side, I believe, crops it. Yeah, it does. So you can resize it, chuck me in the corner, and then you might want to make that pop a little bit more. You can duplicate the layer by clicking this one here, and what I might do is then edit. So you come up to this part here, edit image, and if I make this overly bright, and then I can make this image slightly smaller, I could chuck this over the top and line it up. And it almost makes it kind of like a little stroke pattern. So it just makes it stand out a little bit more, almost like it's glowing. And then if you want to add some text, on the left-hand side here, there's a text option. And again, it gives you different font combinations when it decides to load. So you can add text that already has glow on it, and obviously edit that text to be able to suit whatever you want it to say. And then obviously up here, you've got the option to change the color of the text, as well as the font. If you prefer, you can just go through all of these options and just pick whatever you want to pick. I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. I'm just kind of playing around at this point, but you've got standard shadows if you want to edit the shadows and the direction, or add the fuzziness, make it more or less transparent. You've got a lot of little options, to be fair. You can play around with it, just have some fun with, and make it your own, really. But it's a nice little app if you want to experiment around with it and make thumbnails for no money whatsoever. So then all you're doing is spending money on a mic if that's what you decide to do, or use your phone mic, and then it's all free. Use your phone microphone, your editing software, DaVinci, thumbnails, Canva. YouTube is sorted for free. Now, if you have the budget, I would strongly recommend Photoshop. To me, it's just a lot better. And I've got a little folder here ready for this thumbnail. So what I did was actually, I stood in front of the wall behind me without the lights, and I just stood in random poses, positive poses, negative poses, shocked, I changed my top, so I took my hoodie off and had a black shirt on instead, and I did the same thing, and I'll probably do the same thing after this video, just so I've got more options when it comes to what top I'm wearing, so it's not the same tops in every thumbnail. But that's the first step. Drag it into Premiere Pro, or if you're using DaVinci, drag it into DaVinci, and you can take the screen grabs from each pose that you do, and then you can drag it in here into Photoshop, and I've got it all organized here. And I've just removed the background. And so that's quite easy to do. Removing the background is as simple as, you have your still image of you here. You can go up here to the select option and click on subject, and you're pretty much sorted. There's some refinement, so Control J then duplicates it, or if you have the mask tool selected, you can then right click and layer via copy, and it creates a new layer. And now you have yourself. You have yourself. That's as simple as that. Now, what I like to do is just add a stroke to this. So if you double click on the layer outside the name, double click on the name, it edits the name, double click outside the name, and it opens up the layer style. And if you add a little stroke, which is just this fat bit outside, you can then zoom in, which is Alt on the scroll wheel, pressing E or going over here for the eraser, and hold Alt and right click, and that changes. Hold Alt, right click, go left and right, changes the size, up and down changes the softness of it. And then you can just fix it. So as you can see here, this is all a little bit messy around my hair. So you can just go around and edit this to neaten it up a little bit. And I've done this on every single photo that I have of me, and I'll have to do it again when I make some more. But you can just do that wherever you notice some impurities, but this one actually doesn't look too bad. Control 0 makes it full screen again, and then you have the photo of you. But for this video, I'm going to be using this picture of me pointing, because I'm going to be making this thumbnail. And what I mentioned before about everything having to be big, so the normal size for this, I believe, is about that. But on a small screen, that doesn't stand out as much. So every time I always extend it so that I cover the entire frame. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go into Google and find the Photoshop logo as a PNG. And if it's not a PNG, you can take the same, actually, you know what? I'll find a non-PNG and then show you how I'd edit that. All right, so as you can see, this is not a PNG image. For those of you who don't know, PNG is without the black background, so you can save it like so, save as, and it will have no background. But I just copy and pasted it for the purpose of showing you how I would then go about removing the background. So there's this magical tool over here called the Magic Wand tool, or you click W, and then you select anywhere and it selects everything in that color. Click delete, and you're sorted. That's as simple as that. Sometimes, depending on the image, if, for example, it's a white background and there's some highlights, so white that goes into gray, for example, then it might get rid of some of the image. So the best way of doing that would be to zoom in as close as you can, get the eraser tool and just do an outline around where that gray is, and then use the wand tool and it won't select the gray anymore. Now we've got a PNG image, I'm gonna have to reposition this. So Control T allows you to resize, and actually I might lopside it a little bit. And I wanna make this, again, I wanna make it pop. And for this, I don't think I'm gonna use any text. So text sometimes works and text sometimes doesn't work. It kind of depends on the video. For this one, it's quite obvious I'm talking about Photoshop, and the title is gonna say the rest. So the title will be whatever you clicked on. And so I don't think I actually need any text within this. And then it's a case of whether or not you want the layer above or below. If it's below, it's then behind me. If it's above, it's then on top of me. I don't know which one I want, to be completely honest. I think I want it on top. Actually, you know what? For the sake of this, I will add text. So if I make this a bit smaller, make it so I'm actually pointing at it, and then click T or go over here to the text panel and click anywhere on the screen, and I'll highlight that green. That's just selecting this color panel up here. I want to change the font to be bold. Actually, no, you know what? I might make it extra so it stands out. And if you can see here, it is actually, the letters are very spaced out. And now if you highlight it, there should be an option over here called character. If not, you can head up to window and then click on character and it'll show up for you there. And you get all these options down here. Now the option I want to change to make the text squidge back together is this one here. So if you see, I can move this and it moves it further away or it makes it closer. It depends on your preference, but I'll just leave it as, it normally is 0. And I'll make this text big on the screen so that everyone can see clearly that it's basics. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to change the color to match the Photoshop. So to do that, double click on the layer, which I just did. Click on the color overlay, click on the color, and then you can get this eyedrop And you can either select that one or that one. I'll select this one because then what I also like to do with my text is I like to add a stroke, and I like to add a slightly darker version of the same color and make the stroke just about thick enough that the letters are almost touching. So you can see between the S, I, and the O, there's a tiny gap in between. I like it about that big. And I always add the same style and the same settings to everything, to all of my text. So my text always has a shadow to make it pop out a little more, as well as a glow, and I make the glow the same color as the text usually. And the size again depends on your preference. A lot of this is preference based, so if you edit along whilst you're doing this, you can test it around yourself. And I always like to add a bevel and emboss. And you can see what that did there. If I turn it off and turn it on, it makes it look a little bit more 3D, and to me, I just prefer the look of it. I just think it looks that little bit better. So now that I've got that sorted, I'm gonna do a similar thing with the photo of me and also the Photoshop layer. So the photo of me, a glow. I don't bother adding a stroke anymore. I only use a stroke to make sure that it's a smooth cut, but I'll add a glow, and actually I make that the same color, and I also add a drop shadow, but a little bit less of one. So spread basically makes it thicker, as you can see. So it's got more of a solid line. If you have less spread, it's more of a softer edge. The distance depends on how far away from the person it is, and this just changes the angle of the light, as you can see. The shadows dancing around. So I'm happy enough with that. And then I might just copy the effects from me onto the Photoshop layer. It shows here effects down here. If you hold Alt and drag that, it then copies the effects across. If you don't hold Alt, it just switches it basically. So I'll hold Alt and copy it across. And I might want to change the shadow a little bit on that one. I'll change the distance. So this is all well and good, but there's nothing in the background of it. So you've got a couple of options. A lot of the time I will use an empty frame of this. So I will just take that screenshot and then I will put that in the background. So now this is in the background here, and I can extend that a little bit. When you're resizing, if you just drag up, you can see the bottom stays the same, and the same with if I go left, the right stays the same. But if you hold Alt, then it all goes right from the center, so it all resizes perfectly equally. So you can resize that a little bit, and I always like to add a bit of a blur. So go over to filter, blur, Gaussian, whatever, and just add 1.5 will be fine. And then I always like to add a little bit of something else. So I go down here and add a new layer above the background, but behind me. And I'll change the brush tool, which is B, or this little tool over here. And I'll change this to white. And I'll zoom all the way out and add a little pop, and a little pop. And then I might change this to the bluish. So I'll just change that to light blue. I'll just keep it on the same layer for now, and I might add one above, that's too much, on each corner. And then when I come back in, it just adds a little bit more of something, a little bit more of a glow. But now I'm thinking the glow on all of these effects is a bit too much. And then that's basically it. You have your thumbnail. You can reposition these. As you can see the stroke had made that go off the screen a little bit. So if I reposition it around there, and it's clear that I'm talking about Photoshop basics, I might actually reposition this a tad if I make this a bit smaller, just so you can see my fingers pointing, or at least one of them pointing, so you can see that it's pointing at the Photoshop. And then that's basically it for making a thumbnail. You can mess around with it however you like. There's a lot of other tools that you can use, but I didn't have to use them for this tutorial. If you'd like to see me go more in depth with what all the tools are actually doing, go over all of them, then let me know in the comments below, as well as leaving a like and also subscribing if you are new and you enjoyed what you watched just now. And yeah, that basically concludes my YouTube basics tutorial. Next week I am uploading the first 5 settings that I look for in any camera. If you're a noob, if you're not a noob and you're just changing brands, then that video is the one to watch for you. I think it's quite useful to know what to look for, because the menus are all different and they're all confusing. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you in future videos. Take care, peace, Garnier.